and welcome back to The Issue. I'm Mark Carr with Brian Heagle, and our special guest is Pam Damoff. Pam, welcome to The Issue.
Thank
now, you are a brand new member of Parliament, but you've had plenty of political experience. So how do you find it up in Ottawa?
Well, do you know, I'll tell you, it's been almost a year, eh? It's a little surprising that it'll be a year in October. Yeah. So certainly I'm really enjoying it. Yeah. I'm really fortunate to be where I am and represent, you know, my riding, Oakville and North Burlington, and the people who live there. It's a blessing.
That's a brand new riding too.
It is. So it's a blank slate. I mean, I'm the first MP from that area. It's you know, it's a new riding. So you know, it's exciting. It's an exciting time for sure.
Finding your way around and up on Parliament Hill. Well, I know that can be very confusing to a lot of.
You know what is nice? There's so many new MPs from all parties that, you know, we all, I think we're fortunate, to be honest with you, because you don't have any preconceived notions going in. Our committees are really working well together. So it's sort of nice being part of a large group of new MPs as opposed to being one of maybe 10 new MPs, and everyone knows the routine and is sort of set in their ways. So it's been a great opportunity. It really has.
Well, in a way that sounds like it's like going back to school. You're sort of all in it together and you're learning as you go through and get educated. One of the questions I wanted to ask you today was, being on town council, and then you're amongst your people all the time, but then you go off to Ottawa now as an MP. Is it difficult to stay close to the ground in terms of what you're hearing in the community and making sure that you've got your finger on the pulse of what's happening in your riding? Well,
it's different for sure. And I miss seeing the people on a daily basis. But having said that, on Oakville Council, it was considered a part-time job, so even though it wasn't. But I'm home every weekend, and we get a constituency week once a month, and I'm certainly still connected in a large way to the riding. I'm still organizing the Oakville Terry Fox run. But it is different. There's no doubt about it. There's events that happen during the week, and I'm just not able to be here because I'm in Ottawa. So I miss those opportunities to, whether it's a chamber event or a charity event, to be able to attend them and connect with people at those. So I try and do as much as I can still.
Do you find yourself busier as an MP as opposed to town council?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a lot busier, and even all summer, there was sort of a backlog of people wanting to see me, and things that I wanted to do as well, get out to see businesses, meet with the students who had Canada Summer Jobs. I wanted to get into those employers and meet with them. So it's definitely busier.
Definitely full-time.
Definitely full-time.
Yes.
So we wanted to really find out what the your Liberal government is expecting to get through the agenda. You had your retreat at Saguenay,
we did.
Quebec, and I'm sure there was a lot of discussion about what should come forward first. So let me just throw it out to you. Were there any issues that people in the caucus felt should come forward first?
Well, I think, a lot of what we're doing is just following through on our election platform. And one of them I wanted to mention was the electoral reform.
Yes.
Because, we've been having town halls here in Halton. I'm having one tomorrow night.
And where is that? We might as well give you a plug for it.
It's at the Haber Center in Burlington. And I have the parliamentary secretary to the Minister of Democratic Reform coming as well. And one of the and you do need to RSVP for it because we've had a tremendous response. But prior to that, I'm also doing a roundtable with him with groups involved with people with disabilities, because one of the things we're looking at is not just changing the ballot. I know that's been the focus of a attention. But also, what are the barriers to voting? So, you know, for young people, for new Canadians, and also I think a group that doesn't get consulted nearly enough are people with disabilities. So what are the barriers to people with autism getting out to the polling station? What are the, you know, people with physical disabilities, what are the barriers for them? So we're actually doing a roundtable with the parliamentary secretary on that as well, just to make sure that those voices are part of the consultation.
But after all the consultations, and your government has been doing a lot of consultation.
We have.
You have to get forward with the legislations to implement those.
Absolutely. But I think, you know, it's important for us to go out and talk to people before, not and listen to them. That's one of the things that, as you know, there's nothing more frustrating than consulting with people when you've already made up your mind and then the decision's made. I certainly saw that on council where, you know, we would have a group come, the decision was made and it was called consultation. So I have seen a real willingness to listen, and I think that's important. And certainly I'm always open to listening to people and hearing what they have to say. So I'll be interested to see what comes out of tomorrow night.
You've got some heavy lifting to do, though, in terms of legislation. I think of First Nations, the marijuana issue, the economy, electoral reform, as you mentioned, a health accord. Like those are not insignificant issues that you've got to deal with.
No, they're not. But I mean, you know, we came in and quickly started doing a lot. Really fast, actually. You know, when the Prime Minister and Cabinet were sworn in beginning of November, the election was just in mid-October. So I think we really did hit the ground running. And you know, there's been
particularly on the immigration
and the economy. I mean, the tax cut we did right away. We brought in the Canada Child Benefit. The First Nation, you know, the Indigenous people and First Nations. We've started the process for the inquiry, and I think I'm really proud of the way it was handled in terms of consultation and involving our Minister of Status of Women, Indigenous Affairs and Justice. So there was broad consultation. We're also going to be doing a great deal of consultation, as Minister Goodale has said, on public security. And I'm on the Public Safety Committee, so I'll certainly be part of that.
That's a very complex issue, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not an easy one.
Well, and to go to Mark's point, I mean, what you're getting, you're right, you've moved quickly in a relatively short period of time. And I agree that real civic engagement is bringing people into the process as early as possible. Now with the ready-made, here's what we're doing, what do you think? I think the issue now will be with all those fundamentally difficult issues to make fundamentally difficult decisions around them. Yeah. So you may hear things you don't want to hear necessarily, and it's not just from opposition benches, it will be people out, voters, and I like the fact you're trying to be more inclusive and not just deal with an issue, but all the ancillary issues, whether it's accessibility, technology to assist that, other resources. But do you feel that, quite frankly, with all this here, you have a mandate, you have a majority. Is the government going to move relatively quickly? In other words, if we're talking a year from now, how many of these will
I mean, medical assistance in dying was something that we had to move quickly on, and we did. And it was certainly an emotionally charged issue. Certainly for me personally, the vote on that was incredibly important and emotional. I mean, it was something that we did move quickly on.
That wasn't a whipped vote, was it? Or
no,
was it?
No, it wasn't.
So it was a free vote?
It was a free vote, and the debate in the House of Commons, quite frankly, it was very personal. People were, but I mean, we did move quickly on that. Unionization of the RCMP was another one that we were actually the first committee to do clause by clause study of a bill, and it was the Bill C7, unionization of the RCMP. So I know we do have a very ambitious,
for sure,
but that doesn't mean that we won't be moving forward on it, and I think already we have, quite frankly.
And I think one of the concerns, I mean, this is federal, certainly in Ontario, we're hearing a lot about this in Queen's Park. I mean, there's right now, I think it's somewhere over $29 billion deficit, which was a campaign issue, but the Liberals said we're going to run deficits for a while. But now it's a shell game too. So when you do something, you have to take away usually something, and it's dollars often or other resources. We've got huge debt again in the next couple of years. To me, that will be the hardest part. So I think for the Liberal government, any government that comes in with a mandate has moved quickly on some very important issues. Your popularity is high. You have a leader that's there's only one place to go after that when you have to hit the turbulence of saying, we're not going to give you the good news. We're going to give you the news that has to be made if we need to accomplish balancing a budget at some point in the near future. So you feel confident, you have the leadership, you have the mandate. The question is, do you think you're going to have the ability to do that, going to all these consultations, or do you just have to keep moving quickly and make the hard decisions?
Well, I mean, we've got a Prime Minister who is providing the leadership. We also have an incredible depth in our cabinet. You know, there's no question that our Minister of Health is, in terms of working on the Health Accord, is more than capable than working with her provincial colleagues on that. There's a lot of talent in the cabinet, and I don't say that lightly, and just because I'm a Liberal. I mean, you look at some of these people that are there, and they're incredibly. Our Minister of Defence is incredibly well respected by all parties. So I think, you know, any government sets priorities, and we were elected on a certain set of priorities, and we'll be moving forward on it. And I mean, there's certain things I'm working on here in Halton, because people that elected me are not only concerned about the national agenda, but they also want local issues addressed. And you know, I pushed for and was successful in having us study post-traumatic stress disorder in first responders and public safety officers, and that report will actually be tabled at the beginning, as soon as we go back. Just last week, the Halton Police had an organizational wellness launch, so they're looking at the mental wellness of their officers. Oakville Fire, Burlington Fire, and our Halton EMS are also looking at programs. So I'm really looking forward to working with them to make sure that the people who are keeping us safe are also well. So there's certain things locally that that are a priority for residents in my riding, and I think, you know, along with the broader agenda, I need to be dealing with those things as well.
Well, it's interesting that you work with Kevin Flynn, who's the member of provincial parliament and cabinet minister, and one of his issues is mental health and bringing that to the forefront, so people recognize that this is an illness. And I know Kevin is very involved in that, so it must be nice to be able to work with your provincial partner. He's
actually taken a leadership role on post-traumatic stress disorder, right? But that is something that I personally want to highlight for the residents of Halton, that it's a priority that we need to make for our first responders, and raise awareness that, you know, it is an issue, and making sure that people are coming forward and that there are the resources available to make sure that they are getting the help they need if they need help. So, you know, there's broad priorities, there's local priorities. You know, we have to balance all of that as a representative.
And one thing to the credit too, I mean, these are a lot of issues which people like to tuck away sometimes, and I think the Liberal government has said, don't, we need to shine a new light on it, and we need the leadership. And I think that's the key. So what you've been talking about encourages me, because I think you need to hear that there are the people capable of creating change and important change, but also that they're interconnected. So in other words, you're working locally, provincially, federally, and internationally to try and accomplish a lot of these things. So that's a different attitude.
Yeah, and we're locally here.
A much different attitude than the former government had. Much different.
And lessons to be learned. They're learning.
Yeah, and I mean, we're trying locally as well to have our federal members have regular discussions with our provincial members as well as the municipalities. So making sure that we're having that dialogue so that our local priorities are being communicated both provincially and federally, and also pushing to see them implemented. So whether it's on transit or infrastructure,
well, infrastructure is a huge issue.
Oh, it is. I was actually just at the Federation of Community and Municipalities event tonight, and I mean that's something they highlighted during the campaign. And you know, when you talk about running a deficit, we have a huge deficit across the country in infrastructure. And so if we don't invest in that, we have to it's like your roof, right? If you don't fix your roof when it starts leaking, and you know, if you're not doing the regular maintenance on it, it's a lot more expensive when it's a major repair. So I mean,
that's the short-term pain, long-term gain, and vision. And I think that's where you have to be brave, and you have to have the leadership that's committed and not deviate when they hit a few bumps and hurdles. Unfortunately, all the things we've been talking about, none of them are easy. None of them have that magic bullet. You can address them bit by bit sometimes, but it does take a lot of effort and cooperation and collaboration to get it done.
Absolutely.
I think the collaboration, if I can throw my 2 cents worth in, is extremely important, because we didn't see a lot of it in the last federal government. But to know that the feds are talking to their members of provincial parliament and talking to the municipality, I think that is something that is vital, and you have to be able to get along with each other and work to the benefit of that one voter, that one taxpayer.
I've always said that you don't have to like each other, but you have to work together, and you have to respect each other, and you can have differences of opinions, but you know, that's what it comes down to, is trying to find some solutions and working together to implement them.
Just on that note too, is that you came from a world in the municipal world where there are no party alliances or allegiances. You've jumped into a highly partisan ship now. Do you find have you found that to be difficult, although you have a majority today, to be able to reach across and work with any party to get things done? Has that been a challenge or surprising?
I think coming from what I was saying earlier with so many new MPs, that you're not getting that hyper-partisan atmosphere that was there before. So I'm on the Status of Women Committee, which is chaired by the opposition. No one knows why, but it's chaired by the opposition, as opposed to all the other committees, other than ones that hold the government to account. They're chaired by the government. So that committee alone, you know, and I'm the vice chair of that. So we've got to work together. We came up with a report on gender-based analysis, which required all of us to work together, and we work together really well. We're now looking at violence against young women and girls, so things like rape culture on campus, and in fact there's an event at Sheridan College on October the 13th that I'm going to be involved with, to try and, you know, shed a light on that. And I'm really pleased, even on our post-traumatic stress disorder, occupational stress injury study, all parties, we work together so well. So I think, and you're seeing that in committee, you are seeing that collaboration.
I mean, I hope that gets out to the general public, because I think there's, you know, I think from voters, from fatigue to frustration, they see the hyper-partisanship. I mean, it's a product of any political system.
Well, most people only watch Question Period, right? So they see that little snippet of it. Now, we actually stopped clapping in Question Period. So it really brought down the tone and the heckling. I've never heckled. I never intend to.
Good to hear.
But it's, you know, it was something that, so that every time a cabinet minister stood up and answered a question, we stopped clapping. And it just seemed to sort of bring the temperature down a little bit.
Well,
it did.
I think decorum, professionalism, it'd be nice if Queen's Park would follow that, because I've always heard from the older MPPs when they brought the cameras in, there was like showtime. And unfortunately, that's, you know, we see what those activities are like on the playground, and we need to know our leadership, making the big decisions, are taking it very seriously at all time, and they're not clapping or shouting over people.
But our parliamentary system does require a strong opposition
Absolutely.
to hold the government to account. So you can expect some of that, but not that hyper-partisanship.
Well, you do, and you do have to have that, and that's their job, is to oppose, right? And they need to do that. But when you're talking about school children, I often look up in the gallery, and there's been times when I'm embarrassed by the behavior that I've seen. And as a new MP, you know, this is the role modeling that we're making for our young people, and I think we need, it's incumbent on us to be good role models. And like I said, you can disagree without being disagreeable. So that's what we need to do. We need to do more of. And I am optimistic about how things have been working and the way things were.
Hopefully it catches on.
I hope it continues the way it started with Parliament up there, and hopefully the legislature in Ontario will learn something, as Brian says. There's one thing that I want to ask you, though, just before we break. Marijuana.
Yeah.
I'm interested in how that's going to come about. Are you going to actually put legislation in place that allows people to generally smoke marijuana?
So I don't know what the process will be. That we don't have the legislation yet, and as you probably know, Bill Blair has been reaching out over the summer. The Halton Police actually provided feedback to him to provide to the government, which they sent to me as well. So I think how it's going to be done, but yes, we will be. I mean, it's legalizing marijuana will take it out of the hands of criminals. Kids are smoking marijuana now. There's a huge issue with use. So it's not that they're not getting it. So what we need to decide as a government is how best to proceed to legalize it. And we're not decriminalizing it. We will be legalizing it. So, you know, there's been consultations with the provinces there. And, you know, once we get further along on that, I'd be happy to come back and share where we're going on it.
We'll be in touch with you on a regular basis, and even on the phone when you're up in Ottawa. I think that would be great to have that input into decisions that are made and hear from the local member of Parliament.
I mean, we want to deal in a you know. If there's a problem with marijuana with the kids, let's get it out of the hands of children and make it so that there is legislation around it as opposed to because what we've got isn't working. It's not working.
But it hasn't for many years.
You're absolutely right. It hasn't been for a long time. So let's take a look at a better way of doing it and keep the drugs away from our kids.
Yeah, I think it's right. I mean, it's been long a reality that finally you're going to deal with. You won't have the perfect answer, but you're going to have a better one than
currently exists. Well, Pam, I want to thank you so much for joining. And it was quite a surprise that you were willing to come in. I thought you were up in Ottawa, but it's so nice to see you here. And all the best now that you've found your parking spot up in Parliament Hill.
I would say that to people. I found where the washrooms were. So
exactly, and all the best to you up there, and especially with that new riding. It'll be interesting to see what issues come out of that riding as opposed to issues that were in the old riding. So I want to thank you again for joining us here, and I'm going to hold you to being back here when issues come up.
Whenever you want me, I'll be available.
I appreciate that, Pam. And to our audience, stay tuned. We'll be right back.